Hi, don't forget to subscribe and click the bell to stay updated with new stories on our channel. The phone buzzed against the mahogany desk, pulling Alexander Volkov from his concentration. He reached for it absently, his attention still half captured by the financial projections glowing on his monitor. The screen lit up with an unknown number. No name, no profile picture, just a stark, anonymous message burning into the dimly lit study. Bianchi's back corner table. Come now if you want the truth about your wife. The air left his lungs. Bianchi's, their restaurant. The place where he'd proposed to Sophia 5 years ago under the soft glow of crystal chandeliers, where they celebrated anniversaries with expensive wine and whispered promises. Sophia had left 3 hours earlier, draped in her cashmere coat, claiming her mother needed help recovering from a minor surgery. "Don't wait up, my love," she'd murmured, her lips brushing his cheek, the familiar scent of her perfume clinging to the air long after she'd gone. Now this. His fingers tightened around the phone. Spam, he tried to tell himself. A wrong number. A cruel joke. But the specificity of it, the name of the restaurant, the exact table location, sent a cold trickle of dread down his spine. This was no mistake. He was moving before he'd fully decided to, snatching his car keys from the bronze bowl by the door. The elevator ride down to the parking garage felt both endless and instantaneous. His heart hammered against his ribs, a frantic, primal drumbeat his mind couldn't quiet. The city blurred past his windshield, a smear of neon and rain-slicked asphalt. He wove through traffic, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. Memories flashed, unbidden. Sophia's recent late nights at work, the new passcode on her phone, the emotional distance he'd blamed on stress. The pieces, once ignored, now clicked together with terrifying clarity. He parked a block away from Bianchi's, his body humming with a strange, numb energy. Through the grand, frosted windows, he could see the warm, golden light, the silhouettes of diners frozen in a pantomime of normalcy. His feet carried him across the street, each step heavier than the last. He slipped inside through a side entrance, avoiding the host. The air was thick with the scent of garlic, truffle oil, and expensive wine. And then he saw them. There in their corner, half hidden by a sculpted wine rack, was Sophia. The emerald silk of her dress, the one he'd bought her for her last birthday, caught the candlelight. She was leaning across the small table, her hand resting intimately on the forearm of a man he had never seen. He was handsome, dark-haired, wearing a suit that cost more than most people's monthly rent. They were speaking in low tones, their heads close together. Alex watched paralyzed as the man said something that made Sophia laugh. A deep, throaty, genuine laugh he hadn't heard from her in months. She reached out and brushed a strand of hair from his forehead, a gesture of tender familiarity that shattered something inside Alex's chest. Then the man leaned in. He cupped her jaw, his thumb stroking her cheek, and kissed her. It was not a brief, friendly peck. It was a slow, deep kiss full of a hunger and intimacy that spoke of countless other kisses, of a shared history Alex had known nothing about. The world narrowed to that single devastating point. The clatter of cutlery, the murmur of other diners, it all faded into a dull, roaring silence. His hands trembled as he fumbled for his phone. The screen felt alien, slippery. He opened the camera, zoomed in, and captured it. One single, perfect, damning photograph. Her profile, his hand on her face, their lips joined. As he lowered the phone, the man's eyes, a cold, piercing blue, drifted over Sophia's shoulder and locked directly with his. There was no shock, no guilt. Just a calm, almost imperceptible acknowledgement. A faint, cold smirk in the depths of his gaze before he slowly, deliberately broke the kiss. Alex stumbled backward, turning away from the scene, his breath catching in his throat. He burst out onto the cold street, the image seared onto the back of his eyelids. The drive home was a blank, a autopilot journey through a city that now felt alien and hostile. Their penthouse was silent and still, a museum of their life together. Her book lay open on the side table. Their wedding photo smiled from the mantelpiece. He poured a whiskey, the ice cracking loudly in the profound quiet. At 3:12 a.m., his phone screen illuminated the darkness. A message from Sophia. "I'm not coming back. I want a divorce. My lawyer, David Chen, will be in touch. Do not contact me again." The words were cold, precise, and utterly final. No explanation, no pretense, no trace of the woman who had kissed him goodbye hours earlier. He stood at the floor-to-ceiling window, the sprawling city lights twinkling below like a field of indifferent stars. The man in the restaurant had seen him. He had known Alex was watching. The anonymous message, the specific table, the locked gaze. It was all a performance, and he had been the intended audience. The photograph on his phone was no longer just evidence of the affair. It was the first clue in a much darker game, one he was only just beginning to understand. The divorce papers arrived by courier at 8:17 a.m., barely 5 hours after Sophia's text. The efficiency was staggering. David Chen's law firm letterhead glared up at him from the marble floor of his foyer. The documents demanded immediate temporary spousal support, exclusive use of their summer house in the Hamptons, and listed Volkov Systems as marital property subject to division. Alex stood holding the thick envelope, the paper feeling like lead in his hands. He walked to his home office, the same room where he'd received the anonymous message just hours before. The monitor still showed the financial projections he'd been reviewing when his world collapsed. He called his lawyer, Michael Rossi. "She's moving fast. Alex faster than normal. They've already filed." Michael's voice was calm but urgent through the speakerphone. "They're going for the company. We need to act now." For the next 6 hours, Alex worked with military precision. He called an emergency board meeting at Volkov Systems, informing his most trusted directors about the situation before Sophia's lawyers could serve them with subpoenas. He transferred critical intellectual property to a newly established holding company, protecting the core algorithms he'd developed years before meeting Sophia. He froze joint accounts and canceled her authorized credit cards, the same cards he now realized had paid for hotel rooms and dinners with her lover. The paper trail began to emerge almost immediately. His forensic accountant, a relentless woman named Elena Petrova, discovered the first discrepancy by lunchtime. A $15,000 wire transfer to an unknown account in the Cayman Islands, dated 2 months earlier. The memo line read, "Interior Design Consultation." Sophia had never been interested in their home's decor. That evening, as Alex reviewed security footage from their building, he saw her lover for the second time. The timestamp showed 2:14 a.m., 3 weeks prior. The man, now identified as Marco Ferraro, a venture capitalist with a history of dating wealthy married women, had been entering their building using Sophia's keycard. He'd stayed until 5:30 a.m., leaving just before Alex woke for his morning run. The pieces clicked into place with brutal clarity. The late business dinners, the sudden weekend spa trips, the emotional distance. It had all been calculated. Marco had been studying him, learning his routines, exploiting his trust. 3 days after the restaurant incident, the first attack came. An anonymous tip to the SEC claimed Volkov Systems was manipulating its financial statements. Then a blog post appeared on a financial gossip site, alleging Alex had created a hostile work environment for female employees. The timing was too perfect to be coincidence. Michael Rossi confirmed his suspicions. "They're trying to devalue the company before discovery, Alex. If they can make Volkov Systems look unstable, they can argue for a fire sale valuation." Alex spent the next week in a war room on the 42nd floor of his office building, surrounded by lawyers and security consultants. They uncovered more. A shell company Marco had established in Delaware, the same company that had received the interior design payment. Security footage showed Marco and Sophia meeting with David Chen at a private club. 2 weeks before the divorce filing. The battle lines were drawn not just in courtrooms, but in the shadows of corporate warfare. When Alex's team subpoenaed Marco's financial records, they found transfers from Sophia's personal account, totaling over $200,000, money she'd claimed was for investment consulting. The final blow came when Elena discovered Sophia had been slowly liquidating her jewelry collection, pieces Alex had given her over the years. The receipts showed sales to a discreet boutique in Geneva, with the funds transferred to Marco's offshore account. As the evidence mounted, Alex realized this was more than a divorce. It was a meticulously planned financial heist disguised as a failed marriage. And he had been the mark from the very beginning. The courtroom felt airless despite the high ceilings and formal elegance. Alex sat between Michael Rossi and Elena Petrova, the scent of polished wood and anxiety hanging heavy in the space. Across the aisle, Sophia avoided his gaze, her posture rigid in a tailored navy suit. Marco Ferraro was conspicuously absent. The proceedings began with David Chen's opening statement, a portrayal of Alex as an emotionally distant workaholic who had driven his client into the arms of another man. He spoke of Sophia's emotional isolation, her unfulfilled needs. The narrative was carefully crafted, designed to justify what came next. Then Michael Rossi stood. He didn't raise his voice, but each word carried weight. He presented the timeline, starting with the anonymous text and the photograph from Bianchi's. Then came the financial records, the wire transfers, the shell company, the jewelry sales. Elena's forensic accounting revealed Sophia had diverted nearly $500,000 to Marco's accounts over 18 months. The climax came when Michael played security footage from the Geneva jewelry boutique. There was Sophia, accompanied by Marco, selling the emerald necklace Alex had given her on their 3rd anniversary. The timestamp showed this occurred during what she'd told him was a yoga retreat in Bali. A subtle shift moved through the courtroom. The judge, an older woman with sharp eyes, adjusted her glasses and leaned forward. When Sophia took the stand, her composure fractured. Under Michael's methodical questioning, her story unraveled. She couldn't explain the Geneva trip, nor the $200,000 transferred to Marco's investment fund. When confronted with evidence that Marco had 2 other similar relationships with wealthy married women, currently in divorce proceedings, she completely broke down. The verdict, when it came, was brutal. The judge denied all spousal support, citing Sophia's systematic dissipation of marital assets. She awarded Alex full ownership of Volkov Systems, and their primary residence Sophia received only her personal accounts, which forensic accounting showed were nearly empty, the funds having been transferred to Marco weeks earlier. Outside the courtroom, reporters swarmed. Sophia hurried to a waiting car alone. Alex saw her one last time through the tinted window of his town car, a solitary figure in navy, staring blankly ahead. In the months that followed, the collateral damage became clear. Marco Ferraro declared bankruptcy when 3 other husbands sued him for alienation of affection and fraud. His reputation destroyed, he disappeared from the circles he'd once charmed. Sophia sold her remaining possessions and moved to a small apartment in a less fashionable neighborhood. Mutual friends reported she'd become a recluse, her social standing obliterated by the trial's revelations. Alex returned to Volkov Systems, but the victory felt hollow. He walked through rooms filled with memories now tainted by betrayal. The penthouse where they had built a life together felt like a museum of deception. One rainy evening, he found a small box Sophia had missed when clearing her belongings. Inside were letters from their early years, love notes he'd written during their courtship, photographs from their first trip to Italy. For the first time since that night at Bianchi's, Alex allowed himself to grieve. Not for the woman she became, but for the person he'd believed she was. He donated her remaining clothes to charity and converted her walk-in closet into a library. The process was methodical, therapeutic. With each item discarded, he reclaimed a piece of his life. A year later, Volkov Systems launched its most successful product to date. Standing before his team during the celebration, Alex finally understood that some foundations, once broken, can never be repaired. But new ones can be built stronger, with harder-earned wisdom and the priceless value of self-respect. He never spoke of Sophia again. The photograph from Bianchi's remained encrypted on a secure server, a permanent record of the day he learned that some truths, no matter how painful, ultimately set you free.